Hello friends, this is Arvund Sir, and today I've come here with a very important piece of information for all of you. Myriad times in our lives, we confront a situation wherein we are asked to speak upon something. And most often, we don't have the time to prepare. And that's one situation wherein all of us lose our marbles and we have no resort at all. For those situations, I've come with the perfect remedy. Exactly what the doctor ordered. Whenever in life you are confronted with a challenge wherein you are supposed to speak on a topic and it has to be impromptu, it has to be spontaneous, wherein you don't have much time at your disposal to prepare, then you can follow the advices, you can follow these steps, and you'll be completely sorted and at absolute ease. So let's dive directly into it without any further ado. How to deliver an impromptu speech. Step one, topic. In most cases, you would be given the topic, and it could be an informal setting as well. It could be a professional dinner wherein a formal colloquy is underway and you're supposed to speak upon something. And if you have some issues, let's say if you have a problem of not being able to speak continuously, or if you confront a blank, then I'm sure you do end up in a position of absolute disarray, and you do get jittery. So for the same, we have come with variety of resolves, and the first one has to be topic. In cases wherein you're supposed to decide the topic, just give your mind a bit of time, maybe a second or two, and come up with the topic. The topic, if you are supposed to have the topic by yourself, then think of a topic that you have some degree of expertise on. Don't think of it alien topic, because then you'll be on the back foot and you'll give yourself a very excruciating challenge. So the topic, if you are supposed to decide the topic, then it has to be something that you have some expertise on or some knowledge about. And if the topic is given to you, then you can't do much about it. You just have to face the bullet and take it up your chin. So let's get into the pure dissection right now. The first line will state the title of the speech. Now, the first line of your speech will have at its heart the title. And another piece of suggestion is to not make it commonplace. Let's diversify from the commonalities. Let's diversify from the simple. Let's glamorize it a bit. Because if you're not sounding commonplace, you will have your listeners right in the palm of your hand. So, to embolden the same, the first line could be one of these 3, 4, 5 lines. Let's say you're on a professional dinner, or let's say you are on a stage wherein you are addressing to a bunch of people who are your subordinates or a bunch of people who are your seniors. So, first line commonly that people resort to is, my topic is so and so. Now, that is something that school children would do and might get away with it. But adults, professionals, it might not look absolutely impressive or remarkable to use those schoolboy phrases. So, first idea is to diversify a bit, and your first sentence itself should carry the elements of that diversification, so that your listener knows that this certain speaker has something to say which isn't commonplace, or which is to some degree a bit different from what they have heard before. So it could be, I'm here to talk about dash, whatever your topic is. Let's assume the topic is climate change, because that is quite the burning issue nowadays. So I'm here to talk about climate change. I'm here to articulate my opinions on climate change. Now, this line is a bit more glamorous. It is providing for that element of electrification. Now, your listener is going to be on the edge of his seat because you've used a different word, which is in commonplace. Now, his brain will not work as quickly as it always does when he's judging a speech, because he's already taken aback by this word, or by the unique fashion in which the sentence is delivered. Next one, I'm here to project my views on climate change. I'm here to clear my stance on climate change. In this particular one, the fourth one, I'm here to clear my stance on climate change. It will be categorically used in a situation wherein you're supposed to choose between two different options. Let's say in a situation of debate, wherein you're asked to favor to a particular topic and speak against something. For example, democracy. If you're in favor of it or you're against it, then in that situation wherein you have to clear your stance, you can use this sentence: I'm here to clear my stance on. I'm here to voice my opinion on. So you could use any one of these 5 lines, and there are myriad such lines available. The more you'll read, the more you'll come across these lines. The catch here is to sound a bit different, to sound a bit more glamorous, to sound distinct. In order to achieve the same, use one of these 3, 4, 5 lines in uh, wherein you are supposed to deliver a speech. Impromptu, wherein you don't have, again I'm repeating it, when you don't have much time at your disposal. You have limited time and you have to deliver so much. In that challenge, do not collapse, do not lose your marbles. Stand firm, have terra firma under your feet, and follow this process. You'll be able to deliver a fine speech. Now, once you've delivered your first line, let's say in the classroom or in an office, suddenly somebody told you to come out the stage and speak about climate change. And your first line is one of these 5 lines. Now, the second and third line will provide for a cursory glance as to what the topic is about, or to simplify and elongate a definition of the topic. For instance, if one were to talk about climate change. Now, in the second, third line, remember that the first line you've addressed as to what you will talk about. The second, third line will have at its heart a definition of your topic, an elongated definition of your topic. So we have assumed our topic is climate change. I'm here to project my views on climate change. Yes, we are taking the third sentence. You can take either of these sentences. You could take first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. I have sided with the third one. I'm here to project my views on climate change. This is our first line. Now comes our second and third line. Climate change, ladies and gentlemen. Now, your audience, there can be a variety even when it comes to addressing your audience. Using the same word repeatedly, frequently, may end up making your speech a bit bland, benign, and frugal. And as I've said, and as I've stated it multiple times already in the course of these 5 minutes or so, that we are here to have that distinction or to embolden that distinction. And that can only happen when we start using phrases which are in commonplace. So here, climate change, ladies and gentlemen, is one. My folks, one and all present here, all my dear people. You could use any of these 4 or 5 things. Ladies and gentlemen, my folks, one and all present here, all my dear people. One that people commonly resort to is ladies and gentlemen. So let's try and eschew that for a while. Let's not use it all that much. You can use my folks, you can use one and all present here, all my dear people. You can decide it whatever suits you the best or whatever attracts you the best. So, climate change, ladies and gentlemen, is the single most critical issue which hovers over our heads, posing an unsurpassable threat. Now, make it a point that your definition has one such word that has a resounding effect, a word with a colossal impact. Here we have that word, unsurpassable threat. Now, when we are delivering a speech before people who aren't native speakers of English, let's say Indians, it's not our mother tongue. It's a tongue which we have heavily borrowed from the Britishers. So, when you borrow something from other people and you don't have it originally, then you are always in awe of it. So this particular syndrome or characteristic of people could be capitalized upon when we already know that our audience are already in awe of English language. Let's capitalize it to our advantage. when you use this word unsurpassable, your audience are already in a state of shock. Now they are going to process this feeling of shock. They are going to think at the back of their mind as to how this speaker came up with this word. And when that happens, when they begin thinking, you get a little bit of an extra second. You get that extra second to think of another idea to further provide the fodder for this speech. So, this word or a word of similar impact becomes imperative in a speech which is promptu, so that you have the audience spellbound. And when they are spellbound, you buy yourself some time to think of more ideas to fuel your speech further, to elongate that. Now, unsurpassable is a powerful word which not only doubles the style quotient in a sentence, but establishes a connect between the listeners and the speaker. This word will facilitate or pave a way in which listeners and the speaker will find some degree of connection. The effects of the same will only compound when the listeners aren't the native speakers, as I've already suggested. Their minds will take a few extra seconds to register the enormity of the competence of the speaker, which in turn provides for the little time a speaker would dearly demand for. Now, unsurpassable, as we know, is not the only word with that kind of an impact. There are many more, and some of them are listed here. Spectacular, incredible, daunting, death-defying, enormous, maddening, extracelestial, earth-shattering, menacing, intimidating, ungodly. These words, my friends, and there are many other words of the same effect. Once you start reading, you'll come across such words on a daily basis. I've just listed a few to provide for an opposite example. These words, when they are used, and when your listener isn't a native speaker, you already have won them. And when you have won them, their brain, as I've already stated multiple times in the course of these last 10 minutes, their brains are already processing that. So you have already bought yourself some time to think of your next two lines. Next two lines shall provide for an acute and opposite definition which must have diverse elements to give it a sense of distinction. Now, next two lines. Once you have given a fantastical definition, you've used a powerful word. After that, let's get back to square one. Let's get back to the basics and provide a textbook definition. So suddenly, when you have hit the top tier, when you have smacked them right in the gut by a powerful word, the next step that you need to follow is to provide for that sharp relief. We should not be compounding upon the heavier words. We should not start delivering more and more heavier words. Then we might completely confuse our audience and they can become vexatious. So to avoid the same, let's provide them with a bit of a sharp relief. And sharp relief will only come by when our definition becomes a little more simplistic, a little more textbook. So climate change is a global phenomenon. Now, although we are providing for a textbook definition, still, as I've stated multiple times, we cannot completely stick to commonplace words or words which are commonly found and located. Because then why would your listeners listen to you if they can read the same thing right under their nose in the newspaper kept on the table or on the news channel? We are supposed to sound different even if we are giving a basic definition. So global phenomenon is one word that is heavily thrown whenever you talk about climate change or whenever you talk about any other burning issue. Now we need to somehow work around it and not sound very basic and very commonplace. So look here. Global phenomenon isn't an erroneous word. It's not a wrong word by any stretch of imagination, yet it must be omitted. It must be omitted, as it gives a sense of textbook definition which will take away the human element from the speech. Okay, so this is one very clinical point. When you use these textbook words, your listeners, because they've come across these words oftentimes, plethora of times while reading their newspapers or reading the headlines of the news channels, they might develop a certain notion that the speaker has already by hearted these lines. In order to avoid, or in order to have our audience, our listeners, refrain from that particular assumption, we should steer clear from using these extremely textbook definitions. We need to sound a little bit textbook in our third, fourth line, but not that textbook wherein our listener starts assuming that we have by hearted the line. So now let's look for other things that can mirror the effect of global phenomenon. Slow burn, behemoth, catastrophic, apocalyptic. Now these words also well define the climate change. And it will happen in accordance with the topic you have. Because the topic we have right now is a global phenomenon, is something that we all are uh, perturbed by. We are all living this phenomenon. That's why these words are somehow mirroring the effect of phenomenon or global phenomenon. If your topic is food, then you have to resort to words which embolden the effects of food. Now the speaker shall refrain from concluding that all the above words are interchangeable and have the same meaning. These words above do not have the same meaning. They have the same effect. Let me provide you with that distinction. These words aren't interchangeable. These words are just alternatives for global phenomenon. As I've said, we have to steer clear from extreme textbook definitions. So let us opt for slow burn. Now let's go back to our first line. Climate change is a slow burn. Since we have opted for slow burn, the onus is upon us to justify that your next sentence must embolden the notion you've established. Now, whatever word you've opted for in your impromptu speech, the onus, the responsibility is upon you that your next few lines will justify that. Since you've taken the word slow burn, which means something that is having an effect, a critical effect, but slowly, gradually, like climate change. In the next 100 years, it will become, it might hit its peak and it will be almost impossible for us to survive. Now we have to explain it as to how it is a slow burn. So, as it grapples us all in its grips, and it's only a matter of time before we start feeling suffocation. Once you have stated the word slow burn, after that, your next 2-3 lines will justify that, will back it up. So, as it grapples us all in its grips, and it's only a matter of time before we start feeling suffocation or feeling suffocated. Now, this particular line grapples us all in its grips. You see, this is one line which is incredibly remarkable. And everybody amongst the listeners is going to register the very electrifying elements of this line. And I'll tell you why. Because the two letters of the two words in this phrase are same. When you use this trick, your listeners will be perturbed. They are going to register and they are going to remember this. Now, this particular hack is going to provide for that extra dash of glamour to your speech. So, now more examples. Chaos and chasms, a creepy cry. My snake friend made a snide comment. So when two letters, or the first two letters of 2-3 words in a sentence are same, it provides for that sound effect. Now, the effect cannot be transmitted in words and terms, and you can't define that. But on an extra celestial psychological canvas, it provides for that little bit of a glamorous effect, and your listener is going to be pulled in. The next line should be a simplified version of definition. Once you are through all of that, we'll be back to the basics. It may start in the form of a question. For example, what is climate change? Once, and then you have to pose a question amongst your listeners, and then you have to answer it yourself. The temperatures are rising spectacularly, making the earth hotter by day, which will lead to horrendous changes in the water level due to melting of glaciers. Now, here, this definition would have sounded absolutely bland and simple and frugal had we not used these two words, spectacularly and horrendous. These two words are aptly used here, and they're providing for a resounding effect. Again, your listeners and their minds are going to register, and not just register, they're going to be flummoxed and intrigued, and they're going to process this as to how the speaker was able to use these words here. What did he do? They will be got smacked, and that will give you another extra second to think of a fresher idea and elongate your speech. Kindly make it a point to use at least two heavy words in the definition line of yours to provide for a foil to otherwise an extremely simple definition. Suppose that, judging by the nature of topic, the speaker must unravel a warning to their listeners. Now comes the point of a warning, because the topic already is a hot button topic, and we are all perturbed by it. We are all already facing the traversities, the plights at the hands of climate change. So there comes the warning. We are slowly inching towards an extinction scare. Our greed for expansion and abundance has clouded our vision. Now, this is one warning. And if you already know at the back of your mind that once I'm done with my simplistic definition, I'll strive for a warning. Now, when you have given the warning, the listeners are alarmed. Even those who are about to drift away have come back in the thick of the things because of the warning that you're provided for. The last line of your definition must be a saying or a phrase to create a sharp relief. And when you're done with your definition, make sure that you end it. You put that red ribbon on it with a phrase, again to provide for that sharp relief. If we don't get our act together today, we'll pay the piper tomorrow. Pay the piper. What does that mean? When you pay for the wrongs or the mistakes that you've made today, and when you pay for those things in future, you can use the word pay the piper. If you are fond of rash riding, someday you might pay the piper by meeting with a ghastly accident. So pay the piper is one phrase that aptly befits our topic. Now, we are done with the introduction. So all of this happens within a matter of 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. You're following these tricks, these steps as you've gotten onto the stage without your listeners not having an iota of any idea as to what's happening at the back of your mind. I'm here to project my views on climate change. Climate change is the single most critical issue which hovers over our heads, posing an unsurpassable threat. It's a slow burn as it grapples us all in its grips, and it's only a matter of time before we start feeling suffocation. Now, the simplistic definition: the temperatures are rising spectacularly, making the earth hotter by day, which will lead to horrendous changes in the water level due to melting of glaciers. Now, the warning: we are slowly inching towards an extinction scare. Our greed for expansion and abundance has clouded our vision. If we don't get our, there's a typo here, if we don't get our act together today, we'll have to pay the piper. Now, when you follow that process, you complete the first part of your speech, the introduction part. You don't have to by heart your speech, mug it up, waste or squander a lot of time upon it. You can simply follow these steps and deliver a speech impromptu without any preparation. Now, if you want to learn as to how to elongate your speech further, impromptu speech, and speak more about it at length and impress more and more people in larger swaths, you can join Anushka Academy offline and learn a bit more. For the time being, signing off. Thank you.